like we've been saying for a long time now, what happened to Joe Torres, people will never forgive and never forget. And I don't think this will be the last time, that people in Houston get mad and get organized and do something to the police.
Morales insists the violence broke out only because police entered Moody Park. He says the problems of minorities in Houston won't be solved until police get out of their communities altogether.
The police chief was somber and upset when I first saw him at 1 in the morning. He was formal and restrained when he read the charges against one of his veteran officers.
With the assistance of the Harris County District Attorney's Office and the City Attorney's Office, our investigation has reached the point where I have filed murder charges against Officer Terry W. Denson.
Just minutes later, Chief Bond personally took the accused officer to the city jail, the same place where the whole story began last Friday morning. By this afternoon, a source in the case told me what allegedly had happened. 6 police officers had arrested 23-year-old Joe Torres for fighting in a bar. The officers took the suspect to jail, but Torres had been hurt, and jail officials ordered him taken to Ben Taub Hospital. According to our source, the officers decided not to take Torres to the hospital. Instead, the patrolmen allegedly took their suspect to a secluded spot along Buffalo Bayou. Our source says the officers decided to teach Torres a lesson. Torres was allegedly beaten, and then, according to the murder charge, Officer Terry Denson pushed Torres into the water. Our source says the officers involved agree Torres did not accidentally fall into the water. The source goes on to say the officers left the scene thinking that Torres was swimming back toward shore. Torres didn't make it. His body was found in the bayou Sunday afternoon. Official cause of death, drowning. Charged with murder, Officer Terry Denson. Suspended from duty, Officers Carlos Elliott, Louis Kinney, Joseph Janis, Stephen Orlando, and Glenn Brinkmeyer.
Good evening, friends. The residents of a Mexican-American neighborhood north of downtown Houston today began surveying the damage done during a violent disturbance last night. What had begun as a festive celebration ended in a bloody clash with police. 15 people injured, more than 24 arrested, and the entire area was severely shaken.
5,000 to 6,000 people were gathered here at Moody Park to celebrate Cinco De Mayo and observe the first anniversary of the death of police prisoner Joe Torres. Toward sunset, police say several young men got into a fight with the brother of a girl they were trying to pick up. The brother was stabbed and park police were called in. That was the incident that sparked a long night of violence in this neighborhood. Here are reports from Dave Davis and Wes Sims.
The trouble began about 7:30 in the Mexican-American neighborhood several miles north of downtown. A park police unit responded to a disturbance call in Moody Park in the 3600 block of Fulton and saw right away he needed help. Houston police officer T.E. Johnson was the first on the scene.
Park police were trying to arrest a Latin American male. When they did, well, a bunch of them started throwing with beer bottles at him and hit him with beer bottles. We tried to get him out the best we could, and they busted windows out of my car. I left my car sitting, and they burnt my car.
2 reporters from Channel 2, Jack Cato and Phil Archer, were taking pictures of the burning car when they were attacked. Cato was hit with a brick in the forehead and stabbed in the back. Archer was kicked and stabbed several times and was rescued from the scene by police officers. Both newsmen are reported in good condition this morning at Northwest Memorial Hospital. By this time, hundreds of police officers were flooding the area in response to the citywide assist call. As they grouped on Fulton Street, several blocks down, they could see cars on fire and smoke rising from the park area. Flak jackets and shields were handed out, and the officers formed a line to move to the scene. Preparations were made to use tear gas.
Everybody, when you put your mask on, take 3 deep breaths and be sure you can breathe. Be sure your mask is adjusted on your head so it won't fall off. Screw the red off. It comes off. It's not screwed on, it just comes off.
Tear gas was never used because the police line did not pass any large crowds as it moved down Fulton Street. The officers did pass burning police cars, debris scattered all over the street, and several stores which had been ransacked. The one-stop grocery in the 3800 block of Fulton was strewn with merchandise and broken glass. The store owner complained to police that they didn't move fast enough.
But we pay taxpayers money for this. We're paying good money, and 20 minutes ago this could have been stopped. The store could have been saved.
Okay, Mayor Jim McCann got word of the situation while he was at Herman Park. presenting awards to Mexican-American citizens at another Cinco de Mayo celebration. At Moody Park, he found no cause for celebration. Dave Davis, Eyewitness
By
News.
10 o'clock, the tension had mounted to the point where there was a virtual standoff. Hundreds of flak-jacketed and helmeted officers, some of them from out of town, marched down Fulton Avenue, occasionally pulling someone into custody for causing a disturbance. But their objective was to clear Moody Park, trying to prevent a large gathering. At the point where Fulton, Bigelow, and Irvington all come together, there was a large group of officers in regular uniforms. They had been in the middle of the street when the large crowd of adults and children began verbally taunting them, then pelting them with rocks and bottles. The police moved back to the safety of a gas station until they noticed a police car's window being smashed. The police moved in, chasing after the vandals with their nightsticks, making more arrests.
I ain't doing nothing, nigga. Went through. I let you back down. 179.
The officers tried to close off traffic down Irvington, but one car broke through at a high rate of speed, and this was the way photographer Nelson Martinez and I saw what happened.
Look, this guy.
A police officer was just run down.
Excuse me, 3900. Hurry, come on, ambulance. Come on. Oh,
Police right now are calling for an ambulance as this officer lies seriously wounded here in the street. The officer, T.A. Britt, suffered only a broken leg, and the driver of the car was arrested a few blocks away. But for the rest of the evening, officers were wary of any cars traveling at too fast a pace. Some motorists found themselves greeted with drawn pistols. Martinez and I had that experience ourselves. The police had shown a great deal of restraint all evening, but finally it was decided a lower profile was the best answer. So a command post was set up at Northline Mall where they began analyzing the situation. But their absence provided an opportunity for some unchallenged looting, and the Fulton Village Shopping Center in the 2900 block of Fulton was deluged with midnight shoppers who broke windows and doors to claim their booty. At about 1:45, a variety store was set on fire, and the police rolled a caravan of patrol cars to escort the fire trucks that were sent to the scene. But that wasn't until the fire had consumed the entire store. Even the presence of police in riot gear didn't make the firemen breathe any easier when a rifle shot rang out.
Get that light off! Get that light off! Turn the light off.
1 hour after the first fire, another one erupted next door. Firemen waited a good while before pouring water on this one until they were sure they had enough police protection.
The fires were finally out and the situation under control by 3 a.m. With daylight came the painful realization of the extensive damage the violence had caused. The manager of this service station didn't know until he came to work that the business had been destroyed and the gasoline used to set fire to 2 police cars and a news unit. 6 other businesses were either damaged or destroyed. Sebastian Monte sold baked goods here for 2 years. During the night, the bakery was looted and gutted by fire. The arsonist wrote the name of Joe Torres on the walls. Monte says he's ruined. He has no insurance. As he tried to salvage what he could, Monte told me he was too upset to talk about his loss. A variety store next to the bakery was also looted and destroyed by fire, but a nearby clothing store sustained only broken windows. The owner says that's because he had 3 men with shotguns standing guard. Neighbors who hid in their homes and watched the violence around them talked about what they saw.
We heard all the glass breaking inside the store here. We stood out in the front yard. We saw them burning the car across the street there and also the police car across the street.
At a joint news conference at City Hall, Mayor McCon and Houston Police Chief Harry Caldwell, just back from Kansas City, discussed the violence that injured 4 police officers, 2 newsmen, and sent 29 young people to jail. The mayor said the police showed amazing restraint.
For them not to go in and just mop up, I think, took a great deal of restraint because, frankly, it was my tendency to go mop up.
Chief Caldwell says the violence was isolated and spontaneous, the result of a combination of factors.
Hot day, a lot of booze, celebration, some earlier agitation, an incident that precipitated the situation. We have no reason at this time to believe that it was a concerted or concentrated or organized effort.
Mayor McCon says he's convinced there were outside agitators, although he says he doesn't know who they were. Chief Caldwell says his department is investigating the possible involvement of Travis Morales and his group, People United to Fight Police Brutality, whose members were distributing literature at the park. This afternoon, Morales held a news conference at City Hall, and Dan Rosen was there.
Travis Morales' news conference prompted city officials to move an event they had planned for the steps of City Hall. A ceremony involving representatives of the German city of Dusseldorf was moved inside to the mayor's reception room. Outside, the leader of People United to Fight Police Brutality called the issue of outside agitators a false one. Travis Morales says his group is made up of Houstonians concerned about the conduct of the police.
Like we've been saying for a long time now, what happened to Joe Torres, people will never forgive and never forget. And I don't think this will be the last time that people in Houston get mad and get organized and do something to the police.
If you had to redo the events of yesterday, your participation in them, would you change anything that you did earlier in the day? Would you have done anything differently?
Not at all.
Morales insists the violence broke out only because police entered Moody Park. He says the problems of minorities in Houston won't be solved until police get out of their communities altogether. Dan Rosen, Eyewitness News.
Words such as nightmare and tragedy were being used to describe what went on here. Alma Barrera talked to those in the neighborhood.
People in this community are upset. They say they can understand the anger and disturbances caused on the one-year anniversary of the Joe Campos Torres death, but they cannot and will not, they say, tolerate violence against their own people.
Why should they take it out on people in the store? Why didn't they go? Are they scared? Why didn't they go to the police station and take it out over there? They're mad at the cops, not at the people from the stores.
This morning, Northside residents surveyed the damage. 3 businesses had been burned down and looted. 2 others damaged but not destroyed. Most were owned by Mexican Americans, and most talked about why and how it had happened.
If Joe Campos Torres would have been taken care of, I don't think none of this would have happened. But you see, you go and ask for justice, and nobody listens to you, and they send you right back, and they tell you, well, you go home, and you don't belong here. You just might as well just forget about it.
The thing that I get uptight about is that you had 2 gringos that were leading that move, in our community, and none of the people in that People United Against Police Brutality are from this area. And then when the police finally came in, they were the first ones to run down the street to get out of the way.
Some people said they had feared for their lives when they saw kids they knew burn and throw rocks and loot the people they, the looters, knew well. They said it was a sad situation and are afraid of what tomorrow might bring.
I think this is just the start. I think they're going to keep on. Myself. That's what they're going to, yes.
Why? Why do you say that?
Because they got away. And they feel they'll get away again. I think that they ought to just close up Moody Park.
As they looked at the ruins, their dirty streets, and burned stores, many said yes, it might happen again. And when and if it does, they don't want to be around. This is Elma Barrera, Eyewitness News.